Are there any good books for GLP-1s and obesity? We already know I don't recommend this book. I've made a whole video about why, but there are two books I would strongly recommend for very different reasons and to different people. The first book I'd recommend is The Ozempic Revolution by Dr. Alexandra Sowa. She is a doctor in the US and she is board certified in obesity medicine, and my goodness, that shows throughout the whole book. She has compassion, she has understanding. The way she approaches topics is just beautiful. There's a lot of facts in here to support you if you're on a GLP-1 journey, and she describes her approach to managing patients with obesity and some of the things that she recommends. It's really interesting, absolutely worth a read. And the second book I'd recommend for completely different reasons is The Magic Pill by Johann Hari. This is a book I'd recommend to people who are taking a GLP-1, or if you're taking one and you want to kind of engage your family or friends in this is a good book to direct them to because it's interesting. It's not hard hitting with lots of facts, but there are a lot of facts in there. There's a lot of really interesting anecdote, stories, and references to scientific literature. It's very, very interesting. I did not expect it to be quite as powerful as it is. I think it's a very inspiring book. It's very evocative. When he approaches things like processed food, a lot of us already roll our eyes at the topic. He makes it very engaging and gives you mental images that may help you to actually change the way you eat food going forward. It's a brilliant book, and he's clearly a master at what he does. So I really enjoyed this book and would recommend it. So in today's video, I want to answer some more of your questions about my personal experience with GLP-1s. I will be doing another Q&A video about more generic topics, but I'm holding off on that a little bit just because there's some great topics that you guys have brought up that I'm going to do as full videos. So when it comes to my personal experience with GLP-1s, I've been on mounjaro 2.5 milligrams since October of 2024. I did come off it briefly from February till April time. I've covered why in previous videos, but other than that, I've consistently taken 2.5 milligrams. I've never increased my dose. I've never been tempted because I've always been able to lose weight. And then when I decided I was in maintenance, I've been able to maintain at 2.5 milligrams. I know some people do come off mounjaro because they can't stop losing. Some people do struggle to stop losing on mounjaro. Not something you see as commonly on wegovy. How is maintenance going? I have been surprised. People tell me that maintenance is much harder than losing the weight, but that has not been my experience so far. And one of the biggest shifts in mindset that I've had is that before I lost the weight, self-care to me meant getting your nails done, getting your hair done, preening, doing things that showed that you cared about your appearance. Because I used to get people clearly thought that I just didn't look after myself. And so self-care was about projecting that I do care about myself. I'm just fat and I can't seem to do anything about that. Whereas self-care now is actually about indulging myself and looking after myself properly, mentally and in every other way. And one thing that I realized that I needed is I needed a real break from dieting. When I listened to Johann Hari's The Magic Pill, he stated in that he would do one big diet a year or 2 diets a year. I never stopped dieting. I have always been desperate to lose the weight from before I was a teenager. I wanted a nice positive break where I could relax, enjoy my life and not worry about my weight. And when I told people that I was going to do this, so many people said to me, how can you do that and risk gaining weight when you have a YouTube channel about weight loss? I don't care. If I gain weight doing stuff, I'm going to share it with you. It's an experiment. If I get something wrong, I can help prevent you from getting it wrong as well. So I said for the next 2 months, also, I didn't actually set a time limit. For the next however long, I'm just not going to care about what I eat and I want to see where I'm at. So when I'm making zero effort, what food habits do I default to? When I'm not trying to select food for weight loss, what do I default to? But I am focused on trying to improve running at the same time. So I want to make sure I'm eating plenty. I want to have 3 meals a day now. I want to make sure that I'm getting some food in there, some protein in there, to make sure that I'm maximizing my running. So over the last 2 months, I've chilled out and I've had weeks where I've eaten junk food. I've had weeks where I've eaten incredibly well. And what I've realized is actually my baseline right now when I relax and just enjoy my life and don't focus on food is pretty good. It is not perfect. I like chocolate. I still like chocolate, but I do eat smaller amounts and I eat them quite frequently, but I'm also running 30 kilometers a week. So overall, the last few months, I've totally relaxed and indulged my mental health to just relax and enjoy life and see what life is like when I'm not trying to diet. And it's been wonderful and so nice. I would definitely say that I've increased the amount that I'm eating, but my weight is completely static on the scale. Interestingly though, my running is getting massively faster. At the same time, my clothes size is going down. So I think my body is recomping, which is really exciting. I think I'm gaining muscle and losing fat, but I'm not studying it too hard. The thing I am studying is running because that's my focus and I'm really enjoying it. I never thought I could lose weight, and when I achieved it, I started thinking, what else have I told myself I can't do? So back in April, I decided to start running, and I turned up to a park run, which is 5 kilometers. It's 2 laps of a park. I couldn't do the first lap. I was running/walking, and I was so dizzy and tired that I went home halfway through and fell off for the rest of the day. And that motivated me to keep running, even though I didn't like it. And then I started entering races, and I was right at the very back, but I loved the atmosphere. I loved the experience. The courses can be really interesting. This race I'm showing you on screen, you could borrow Oakleys to do the race in to see if you like them. You could borrow trainers from the brands like Brooks, Nike, Puma, On Cloud, you name it, they were all there. And it was just a really fun day. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with the running. I just kept showing up, going to the events, buying the gear because I always enjoy that, and over time my body adapted. I no longer feel dizzy all the time. I no longer feel so short of breath. My heart rate isn't sky high. I can run comfortably, which is something I've never been able to do before, and I can really enjoy the act of running itself. And I look forward to the races. I love going to different places, seeing what's going to happen, getting out the house, sometimes being in nature. I have created a whole new lifestyle that I really enjoy, with something in my week that I really look forward to, and I can't believe the progression I've had in my body. And it's a much better fixation than the number on the scale or your clothes size, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I love the medals. They're so pretty. And my time has gone from over an hour and a half to do a 10K to just over an hour now, which I'm thrilled with in 3 months. So I've worked really hard on that. I really enjoy that. It's fun. It adds enjoyment to my life. And so that's where my focus has been. Do I feel like the effects of mounjaro are wearing off the longer that I've been taking it for? Honestly, no. In fact, I would say I've had weeks where I've felt the least hungry I've ever felt in the last few weeks. But again, I think that's because of my increasing exercise and because my diet is gradually evolving and because I'm eating more. And what I tend to find is that I have weeks where I've actually worried that I don't have enough appetite at times. But what I tend to find is I have a week where I'm not hungry at all, followed by a week where I'm ravenously hungry. And I think my body averages out over time, so I'm not overthinking it. In the book that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Sowa says with some of her patients with obesity, over time, they do start to say that their food noise comes back and that their hunger comes back, but that they're still able to maintain their weight. And so it's much more manageable. I personally haven't had that experience yet, but I haven't been on it for as long. Probably 6 months I've been on it in total, with that 2-3 month gap in the middle. But I don't really struggle with food noise anyway. That's not really my issue. My issue has always been satiety, and I definitely don't think my satiety has gone away since being on the medication. Have you had any bad side effects from the mounjaro? Other than what happened earlier this year, which wasn't really a side effect, it was my own bad judgment for not following the guidance. No, I've not experienced any side effects from mounjaro whatsoever. I haven't even had any gastrointestinal side effects, things like burping, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, nausea. I just don't experience those, and that is quite unusual, but if anything, it's made my gastrointestinal tract more in line with what's normal, not that I struggled with it before. So no, I don't have any of those things. Hair-wise, I get a lot of specific questions about hair. I haven't lost any hair at all during my time on mounjaro or with my weight loss, which really did shock me, particularly given the speed of my weight loss. I thought I was in for losing a lot of hair. I haven't. That's great. My hair wasn't great to begin with though, so there's always that. The reason that people lose hair on mounjaro is down to at least 2 different reasons. One of which is that some people don't eat enough, so they get nutrient deficient, and so that can affect hair growth. The second reason is something called telogen effluvium, which is where any shock to the body, whether it's weight loss or illness or pregnancy, a few weeks later, kind of 12 to 16 weeks later, suddenly you can lose a lot of hair. We don't know whether the drugs themselves independently can cause hair loss. We don't have any evidence for that just yet. There are some anecdotes of that, but we'll see over time. Another question I get asked a lot is about loose skin. Do I have any loose skin? Am I planning to get any removed? I don't really have much loose skin because I've lost about 5 stone. So I thought I might have had a little bit. It's almost a badge of honour to a degree, but I don't really because it was so evenly spread everywhere. I probably have a little bit of loose skin on my tummy, but I did have a pregnancy. That's about it. There's not enough skin there to remove. So, do I plan on stopping mounjaro? I would never say never, but at the moment, no. I'm enjoying life. I feel like my body's been through so many big changes and it's been obese for so long. It's nice to give it this break and feel great. But at some point in the future, I may evolve my diet a little bit and my exercise a bit and then see, but I don't feel any pressure to come off it. If I was starting it for type 2 diabetes, we wouldn't be talking about end dates. So why are we doing any different for obesity, which is also a chronic condition? So no. We may find in the future that people who are on these drugs for longer periods of time are more likely to develop certain complications, but we don't have that evidence just yet. And I can tell you exactly how I used to feel and all the complications I had from my obesity, which I know are likely to come back if I stop it and I regain the weight. So for me, the balance right now is to continue on it and just be happy and not necessarily feel I need an end date. Overall, I saved so much money from it because another question is, what are the benefits that I experienced on mounjaro apart from weight loss? The single biggest benefit was my skin. So I had very bad rosacea that developed in my late 20s. I had been through every treatment on the NHS. I went privately and I was on very strong medications to try and manage it, and nothing seemed to work. So I had very hard nodules under my skin. My face was incredibly painful, and my dermatologist was always recommending Roaccutane, which I didn't want to do because we were considering pregnancy. And then I went on to mounjaro, and within 2 to 3 weeks it had completely gone. And it's never come back. So I save a fortune on dermatology and laser treatments and medications, which far outbalances anything I spend on mounjaro. Food wise, I save money again. So overall, I save money on mounjaro rather than it costing. And I certainly don't go to the cheapest place to get my mounjaro. Another big benefit that I experience is mental clarity. Not something I ever used to struggle with until after my son was born, and then I've always felt a little bit brain fogged, and it completely cleared in quite a stark way when I went on the medication, and that is one of my favourite things. It improves something for me called my executive function, which is my ability to say, I'm going to do this today, and then just go and get it done. Everything just feels that little bit easier. So I don't fully understand why that's the case, but I know I'm not the only one who experiences that. There's a lot of people who anecdotally report it, so again, a massive benefit. When it comes to my mental health, I wouldn't say it's made any specific difference to my mental health, but being happier and more content and feeling better in myself, I'm generally in a better mood. So as a result of the weight loss, I've experienced better mental health. How do you cope with people being negative about GLP-1 medications? I don't really feel like it's my responsibility to manage other people's emotions around something that I do. So I look after myself, I focus on what I'm doing, and I concentrate on that. I do also have the gift of being a doctor, so there is some privilege here in that people don't tend to take me on unless they've got a good debate. What I tend to find, and something I do have to bear in mind with all of this, is that I remember not a million years ago when I used to have a lot of views on obesity that I didn't realise were actually stigma. So I've always been very compassionate towards obesity because it's always been an issue that I've struggled with, but I still felt like, well, if you're overweight, it must be because you're eating too much and not exercising enough, like a lot of people thought, because I didn't know any better. We didn't have any evidence for anything else. And even though my whole lifestyle showed me that I had willpower and drive and discipline and actually value those things, I actively do things that require a lot of discipline and willpower because I enjoy that. Why couldn't I manage my weight? And it's only really through educating myself, through reading around more, through this being an interest that I've been able to work out what is bias from what's actually fact and what's just unknown at the moment. So I'm not going to sit here and look at other people and call them judgmental and be hypocritical when I've previously had some of those viewpoints. And because these people don't necessarily have an interest in this area, it doesn't affect them. It's understandable that they're just going to go with whatever the societal norm is. So it doesn't affect me too heavily. I'm not too worried about what other people think. When I was fat, they weren't happy with that either. So yeah, I'm not that bothered either way. The other thing is that occasionally I'll meet somebody who'll sit down, and I remember a particular interaction I had with some mums, and one of them said, "Are you not worried about the risk of turbo cancers?" Now, if somebody is arguing with you on the basis of things they've read in the Daily Mail or they've not even done any research, it's extremely unlikely that a well-reasoned argument from yourself is going to change their opinion. In fact, what they're likely to interpret is the fact that you're emotive or that you're so interested or taking the time to go through it as a viewpoint on your own biases rather than anything else. So unless somebody is really open and honestly asking, I don't tend to debate these things with people because it's not my job to educate everyone. Though if somebody is open to it, I'm more than happy to have the conversation. In fact, I like having the conversation, but I know with some people having that conversation can be actively detrimental to what you're actually trying to do. So yeah, that's it for today. Hope you've all had a lovely week. I've just had a wonderful week at a family wedding, which is why I've got the henna. So yeah, see you guys very soon.